Morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Tristan Martinez, and I'm with Alliance Solutions Group. Today we're going to be going over the Sage Estimating Core Plus SQL platform for estimating, and I'm also going to touch on some of the other seamlessly integrated solutions that work with Sage Estimating, like E-Takeoff and Navisworks, and show you that seamless integration between those systems. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and just dive right in. What I like to do before we start to do takeoff during a demonstration is I like to kind of give you a lay of the land and kind of show you what all these various tabs are at the top and kind of go over some of the buttons at the bottom. And then from there, we're going to jump into doing some takeoff, and I'll show you what that looks like as we kind of go along. So for today's demo, I went ahead and created an estimate. And for the purpose of this demo, we're just going to call it Estimating Demo. And whenever you create a new estimate, this is the window that pops up. And here's where you would enter in all the information pertaining to the job that you're creating your estimate for, where you enter in the name. You can put in the estimator that's working on it. In this case, that'll be me. Enter in the job size, so on and so forth. We can also add things like the address, the overall location of where this job is going to be located. Or maybe take a bit further. Let's say if you wanted to track the other companies or everyone else that you were bidding against on that job and what their amounts were and who actually won the job, when that was won, for tracking purposes later on in the future. So this is where you would enter in all the information pertaining to your jobs, where you could assign in a crew, so on and so forth. Now here we're on the Home tab, as you'll notice. Now the Home tab is where you would manipulate the estimate that you're working on right now. So if we wanted to, let's say, change out a couple of the columns on there, all I'm doing is just right-clicking. We can just hide some of those columns, or if we wanted to take a look at our overall estimate through various sort sequences, let's say maybe if I want to take a look at it by takeoff order or by the assembly, or location, phase, alternate, so on and so forth. You can create a number of different sort sequences that kind of give you full visibility across your entire estimate without having to go and recreate one tab over and over again and having to continuously type in more formulas. Like very similar to what you would have to do if you're coming off of Excel. So again, here's where you would just manipulate the overall visibility on your estimate, and we'll touch a little bit more on this as we kind of go along. Going over to the next tab, here's where we would, let's say if we're not using a digital takeoff program, or maybe we are, we just want to be able to just drop in a few items from our database. This is where, from the takeoff tab, is where you would actually do that. And we're going to come back to this here shortly as we kind of go along. We're going to come back and I'll show you what quick takeoff looks like in the assembly. But here's where you would drop in all of your items, your assemblies, and into your estimate, where we can kind of populate that into our bid. Going over to our reports tab. So now that we have our entire estimates already built out, everything's pretty much done, we want to be able to create a report and generate a report for maybe our guys in the field. So if we just wanted to be able to pull up, let's say, like a bill of materials report, we have a number of reports that come pre-built into the software with the Core Plus license. If we wanted to just take a look at an overall field report or crew report, so on and so forth, or let's take it a step further and say that, wrong one here. Let's take it a step further and say that we want to kind of create our own. Let's say if we wanted to just take a look at all the totals for this particular estimate, we can go in and create our own specific report that that we can also save and share with others as well. So here's where you would generate all your multitude of reports, and I'll show you again what what an actual report would look like once we kind of complete some takeoff while we kind of go along. And our last tab that we have here is our data tab. Our data tab is where you would go in and manipulate the database. What do I mean by that? So when we take a look at our database, this is the database that I have within Sage Estimating. Now this is one database of about 10 that I have loaded to my system. You can have an unlimited number of databases within your solution. And we work with a number of third-party databases as well, ranging from databases for subcontractors or specialty contractors, or general contractors or industrial contractors. Really, pretty much anything you can think of, we can create a database for you in that. And we can spread it across, right now I have a standard 16 division general contractors database that's in the system, but We work with others as well that go up to 49 divisions, so there's really no limit to this. But the database tab is where you would go in and you would manipulate your individual database items. So if I double click on, let's say, concrete here, and I'm not going to be picky, let's just go ahead and pick a single item for footing forms. Now we're on a database item, where this is where you would go in and you could either add, copy, recreate, or manipulate an existing item on here. You can enter in your description, your takeoff unit, and here's where you would assign that particular labor amount per hour or the cost per square foot. And how simple it is to go in and just change the labor and material costs on a database item is at the click of a button. Very simple, very easy to manipulate. So here's where you would spend all your time, where you would create your various crews and resources and rate tables, your WBS codes. Let's say if you wanted to have a different way of being able to sort out your estimate through, let's say, assembly phase, you can create WBS codes for locations. Really no limit there as to what it is that you can enter into your database. But here, through this database tab, again, is where you would manipulate and make the necessary changes to your database and make those permanent changes for future use. So now that we've kind of gone into that, let's go in and do some takeoff. What we kind of touched on here earlier is, here through the takeoff tab is where you would drop in a couple of quick items, and going back to our database, there it is again. You're able to just go in, and we're going to go in and just kind of drop a couple of items in here, and I'm not going to be very picky here on my numbers. But we can just drag and drop our items directly from our database and put them into our system, or we can just double click and drop those in there as well. So a lot of flexibility on what you can do within the system on that. Our most popular form of takeoff is what's called assembly takeoff. Now, an assembly, when I click on assembly, this brings up a list of all the assemblies that come pre-built into my database. Now, an assembly is a grouping of items. And what it does is that, and what I'm going to do here is we're going to go take a look at a slab on grade. This is one of our smart assemblies that's built into the system. And just to kind of show you the power of this program, this is my assembly for a slab on grade. These are the items that will be extracted from my, depending on what answers I give my assembly, will determine what items are extracted from the database and dropped into my estimate. So here, my assembly is asking me, what's the overall square footage for this slab? Here I put in 10,000. Let's just go ahead and put in 5,000 here. It goes on and starts to ask you questions as far as, what's the PSI, so on and so forth. Now, the neat thing about this, about the power of a smart assembly, is that, take a look here. If you take a look at this assembly, it's asking us, do we want to include edge forms? Well, what happens if I say no? You'll notice that the questions that follow end up changing. That's the power of a smart assembly. If we're not going to include those edge forms, there's no purpose in continuing through that interview. So now that I've said that, I've said no, let me go ahead and change it back to yes. It's asking me now, what's the overall length? Again, I'm not going to be very picky with my numbers here, but you kind of get the idea. That's the power of a smart assembly. And you can build these to be as detailed as you possibly want or as simple as you want. We're including this, but now we're just going to go ahead and hit pass. Now you're going to take a look right here. Once I hit pass, what happened here is, based on the answer that I gave this assembly, these are the quantities that were extracted and all the items. It gives you one last view to see if you want to go ahead and drop that into my estimate. Yes, I do. Now we want to take a look at it by assembly. If I wanted to, now I'm looking at my short sequence by assembly. So here's a couple of the items that we dropped in when we did quick takeoff, and here's some of the slabs that we did. If I want to take a look at it by phase item, takeoff order, so on and so forth, again, there's almost an endless number of ways you can view your overall estimate. It's pretty cool. So another neat thing that I like about Sage Estimating is its ability to be able to sort out and show you your various alternates and show you what items are going to be part of your base bid. Here we have some that are all unassigned, but let's take a look and see what that looks like one more time. So I'm going to go to my assembly takeoff, but right before I do that, I'm going to say that this next takeoff that I'm going to drop into my estimate is going to be part of my base bid. And the overall location, we'll just call it location A. So we're going to go back to that exact same assembly. I'm going to find my slab on grade. I'm going to go ahead and keep the numbers the same here because you kind of get the idea, but you'll notice one thing that sort of populated now that wasn't there before. Here, it's now showing that the items that are going to be extracted are going to be assigned to my base bid, and they're going to be part of my location A. I'm going to cost that out, send it over. Now we're going to do this one more time, only now, instead of having it be part of my base bid, we're going to call it alternate 1, location B. Go back into my slab, you'll notice the same thing happen again. We have our location B, alternate 1 here. Hit my pass button, drop it into my estimate. Now when I want to take a look at it, let's go ahead and sort of collapse some of these items. I'm able to take a look at my bid by alternate, by location. And if I just double click here, all my quantities. Pretty cool. Another neat thing on this is that you'll notice, remember all of these items that we had here that weren't really assigned to any alternate, they weren't assigned to anything. If we wanted to, let's say maybe we missed this, or we needed to be able to send this over and have these moved over to be now part of my base bid, the system will literally allow you to just send those directly over, and you'll notice it took all of those unassigned items and put them now into my base bid at the click of a button. So now I have everything here needed and re-sorted out in the way that I'm comfortable with. Very powerful, very powerful. So now that we have all of our items, everything's in our estimate, we want to be able to, let's say, take a look at our totals. You know, where are we from as far as labor costs, material, labor, subcontract equipment, so on and so forth. We have our totals tab here, and here's where you can actually insert your various different add-ons for, let's say, sales tax, or if there's additional fees or building permits. And there's really no limit to how many of these add-ons you can have on your estimate. Actually, that's not true. It's 999 add-ons that you can have on your as part of your database. And here's where you would just enter those in, and they would populate within your overall totals page. You can allocate these percentages over your entire estimate. And another neat thing here is, let's say, for example, we want to print out these reports, but we don't want to, whoever it is that we're sending this to, we don't want them to see, you know, a lot of the material markups or any of the markups really that we have on that. That's kind of for our eyes only. You can literally hide that from your report so that the moment you go in and you print this out, it's not going to show that on your estimate. Very simple, very easy to use. So another thing too is that kind of shows just the overall power of the Core Plus product, and is the flexibility it gives you when being able to manipulate your overall totals. And what do I mean by that? So here we have a job that we're right at 114,000. Well, give or take, we're going to be a little bit less than $115,000. So let's say we had someone that says, you know what, that looks really good. Your estimate looks great, but I really wish that you could get this under, let's say, $100,000. Is there any way that you can do that? Well, what you would normally have to do within Excel is you would have to go into each one of your cells and find a way to manipulate those numbers and go back and forth. And then you're kind of, you know, you're calling your various subs, so on and so forth. But, you know, how do you do that? And how are you able to just go in and just change an overall total and have it spread across your entire spreadsheet? Very simple. So if I go in here and I want to manipulate the overall total, I'm going to go into the system and say, I really need to be at $100,000. And it's going to pull up that variance at $14,896. Now, what I want to do here is I actually want to spread that variance across my entire estimate. It's asking me, do I want to save the changes I made to my totals? Yes, I do. So it's asking me here, you want to take that 15,000 or 14,000 and spread that across your entire estimate and your overall lump sums? And I hit yes. Look what happens. You'll notice all these red changes that came up to all my material amounts, my equipment amounts. That shows where the software went in and adjusted that overall total. So now I know, in order for me to get to that $100,000, these are the areas that I need to touch on to get those adjusted, those numbers adjusted. Now, let's say if for example, we didn't need to do this for the entire. We don't need to spread that entire 14,000 across the whole estimate. Maybe I just want to apply it to concrete. You can select your individual areas of where you want to apply those changes and that variance. Very powerful. So going back into the reports, now that we have our totals on here, let me go ahead and get out of that. Going back to the reports that we were talking about, how I, sort of brought up, we have a number of different pre-filled reports on here, like a bill of materials. These are some that are already built into the system that you can easily and quickly access. Or like I said earlier, we can go in and we can generate our own report on a very detailed level. So if I wanted just to take a look at my, go back here, report options. Let's say if I want to take a look at my, my overall totals for subcontract equipment, material, labor, so on and so forth. And I want to be able to sort that out, not only on a group phase level, but maybe on a more detailed level as well. Let's say we wanted to take a look at the overall assemblies that we dropped in there. We can literally go in here and just create and manipulate our individual reports however we see fit. It can be either very detailed or very simple, however you like. Very powerful. So that's really a high-level overview of the Sage estimating product. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump into the E-Takeoff program. I'm going to show you what that integration looks like between the two systems. So before I do that, we're going to start off with a fresh estimate. Let me go in here and just delete all the items that we've entered into our estimate so far. We're going to start completely fresh. That way I'll show you what that takeoff looks like when it comes over. So here we have the E-Takeoff program. A couple things right off the bat that I want to point out. E-Takeoff is a full multi-user environment, meaning we can have multiple people on the exact same set of drawings at the exact same time. Another thing too that I'd like to kind of point out that that's very different from other digital takeoff solutions is E-Takeoff reads PDFs in its native format. And what does that mean? That means that if you're loading a set of drawings, you're going to get these clean, crisp lines, so it's not converting it into anything like a different file format. So you're going to get these really clean, crisp lines whenever you load your drawings. Another neat thing about that is you're no longer having to wait for a conversion. So if we're loading a set of drawings, 100, 500, 1,000 pages, it'll get done in just literally seconds when you go to load those drawings. So we have a lot of similarities to other digital takeoff programs where you have your basic areas, count, length, perimeter, so on and so forth. You'll take a look here and we have all of our different control panels. We have our list of traces where it has all of our assemblies. The same assemblies that we had within Sage Estimating are also now in our takeoff program. So now we're eliminating that double entry, and I'll kind of show you what I mean by that as we kind of go along. Another neat thing on this is that, let's say if we're using multiple monitors and we want to free up some of the space that we have on our drawings list, you can take these control panels and put them on other monitors if you have them. So here we have, and you can manipulate the data that you see here. If we wanted to take a look, right now we're just taking a look at a drawing list, but we can actually take a look at a number of different things here to give us more visibility on our overall drawings that we have here. So you'll notice here that we can, another neat thing that we have here is, let's say, and this goes back to that full multi-user environment. I'm going to do a really quick takeoff here. Let's say if I wanted to just apply a filter here to show only the takeoff that Tristan has done so far. Move this window here. Well, that's not working for me here. Oh, there we go. To show only the takeoff that Tristan has done so far, here we did is we applied a filter to it. So very powerful when it comes to that full multi-user environment. If you wanted just to see that, if you wanted just to see what takeoff has been done by estimator A or estimator B, so on and so forth. Or we can apply a layers list where, let's say, if we wanted just to see only the carpet on my drawing, you can do this across all divisions, however you would like and see fit. But the best thing that you kind of like, what we like about our takeoff and estimating tool is its seamless integration when it comes to sending over our quantities into our estimate. So let me show you what I mean by that. Here we have our various slabs, and we're going to sort of stick to the slabs as we've been discussing that from estimating now to takeoff. We're going to start our bridge. Now, the bridge is the link between takeoff and estimating. It's the link between BIM and estimating, or any some of your other programs you might already be using could link up through this bridge product. This is what we use to send over all of our takeoff from our from E-Takeoff to Sage Estimating. So here you'll notice the same assemblies and database items that we had within Sage Estimating are now even in our digital takeoff program. And the way that you send over these individual takeoffs is very simple. You just click and drag. This is our takeoff. This is our assembly. The same assembly that you saw within Sage Estimating is here in our bridge. Now, one more thing that I'm going to do here really quick, that way I'm going to hit this hide assign button. And what that does is we get into these moments sometimes where, we're as estimators or as project managers, you're constantly pulled in different directions where, you're doing your takeoff and you're sending this over into our estimate. But, what if you get a call or you somehow get interrupted and then you sort of forget what has been sent over and what hasn't? Well, here, when I hit my hide assign button, what's going to happen is it's going to hide anything that's already been sent over into our estimating product. And so if I approve this right here, I cost it out and send it over. And you'll notice that slab has now disappeared. Really cool. So now that we've sent over a single slab, does that mean that we're going to have to click and drag for each and every one of these takeoffs? And the answer to that is no. Now, I sent over a slab already, and what the system did, just to kind of show you the power behind behind its intelligence, is it went into the system and saw that I sent over that one slab, and it said, you know what, we found these 11 other slabs that are just like it on that drawing. Do you want us to send that over? Yes, I do. And one by one, they go over to my estimate. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. Go back to our Sage Estimating product. Let me go ahead and minimize this. Collapse all that. Remember, we started off with a blank estimate. These are all of the items that were sent over directly from E-Takeoff. If I wanted to take a look at it from the assembly level, there's each and every one of those slabs. Double click. And if I wanted to take a look at that assembly on a more detailed level, I can just right click on that assembly and it'll take me to all of the information pertaining to that assembly. What all was entered in and all of the items that were extracted for that assembly, the same way that we did earlier today. If I wanted to take a look at an audit trail, you would just right click and it would show you what the original pass was and any other changes that were made to that pass. And one more thing I'll point out here that you'll notice is on these items that we have here, you'll notice that a blue triangle came up on the top left corner of the item level itself. And what that tells me is that this item did not come from inside Sage Estimating. This came from an outside source. So if I wanted to find out where exactly this came from, I just simply right click and drill down into it. And what it's going to do, it's actually going to bring me right back directly to that slab and even highlight it on my drawing. So you get a seamless integration front to back, back to front with estimating and E-Takeoff. So that's really what I wanted to cover on the E-Takeoff portion. One last thing that I'm going to what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you what integration looks like with BIM using a program called Navisworks. Now, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and clear out the assembly, our estimate one more time. That way we can start fresh and show you what those items would look like once they populate from Navisworks. Now, for those of you who are receiving, Revit files come in a format that come in a way that have a great level of detail to where it'll show you, all of these attributes that aren't really necessarily applicable to an estimator or project manager. We need sort of basic information out of all this without having to sort through all of these individual attributes and going through hundreds of them. What a program like Navisworks does is it'll extract the basic information, your overall length, width, thickness, height of either, right now we're looking at the interior partition walls. But what that does is it goes in and it extracts all of that information directly from that Revit file to kind of give you that easy access and only the info that you truly need. And so what's been done here is there's now a seamless integration with Navisworks. And let me show you what that looks like. Here we have our walls for our model, and we start our bridge the exact same way that we would with E-Takeoff. Same database, and the way that you get over your individual items from Navisworks into your bridge is you simply drag and drop. Here's our takeoff. This is our assembly for that wall. The exact same way that you would do it in E-Takeoff is the same way that you would also do it in Navisworks. And the neat thing too here is, remember how we hid everything else that had already been sent over? We're going to do the exact same thing here, and we're only going to show the walls that have been sent over. Actually, I'm not going to do the show selected here. I'm going to hit hide assign. So now when I go to my automatic mode, what the system did, the same way that it took those slabs from E-Takeoff, it's doing the exact same thing with our walls. It went in and found each and every wall that we sent over, or that was similar to the one that we already sent over, and it's saying, do you want to go ahead and send those over? Yes, I do. 67 walls it extracted directly from this file, and at the click of a button, we can now send this over into our estimate, where it would be completely costed out and broken down for us to review and approve. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. Go back into our estimate. All of our walls directly from that Revit file. Same concept still applies, where you can go in and continue to review that assembly if you wanted to. And you'll notice again on that there's that blue triangle again on the item level, where if I wanted to find out where exactly this came from, we would just right click and have it drill down directly through our bridge. So that's the power behind the Sage Estimating Core software and E-Takeoff and Navisworks. Thank you all for joining me today. If there's any questions that come up, or if there's anything else that you would like to know, please feel free to give me a call. My phone number is right here on the screen, and my email address.